Namaskar, Adab, Sastrikal. Welcome to Harita's conversation and a very, very happy and prosperous new year to all the viewers who are watching it now or who will watch it later. Wish you a very healthy, happy, prosperous, happening new year. And today I have the personality who can, fit into all these things: happy, joyful, prosperous, make somebody happy, help them happy. Look at the smile. So you already met her in our one of the previous conversation. It's Nerissa. Nerissa, welcome to Harita's conversation.
Thank you very much, Harita, for having me, and Happy New Year to you and to everyone tuning in, and may 2022 be a good one for us all.
So before we move on, just give you a brief introduction about Nerissa. She is very good author, and I add to that, she is the bestseller author. She's keynote speaker, she's coach, she's motivational speaker. She helps person whenever you need. So sometimes we feel like we need a hand. So if you need that hand, she is the person to hold that hand. So welcome, Nerissa, and today we are going to talk about that hand, how that hand can be different, how that can be reality, and if we come together, how different the reality is. So we'll talk about that. So Nerissa, it's almost a year, and again this year we are beginning our conversation series with you, so it's really a privilege to do that.
Thank you.
And your new book, the title, it's quite catchy. It says different reality. We all know that the things are different with us. Everybody has a different reality. What is this book? Why it's a different reality? Everybody lives that reality.
Yeah, great question. And look, I think we've had that question come at us a lot of times when people read the title, and it's like, what is the different reality, and what does that mean? And to explain that, I just want to set the context here and give you some insight into, or a bit of a backstory, really. So my wife, Charlie, who is the co-author of this book, she lives with a mental health diagnosis, which is schizoaffective disorder and PTSD. And PTSD, for those that don't know, is post-traumatic stress disorder, and schizoaffective disorder is actually a combination of schizophrenia and a mood disorder. So it might be bipolar or depression, and in Charlie's case, it is depression. And she's lived with this for years now, and I've kind of been her carer ever since we've been together. So that's kind of over a decade. And we navigate and journey through life as part of this. Now, as part of schizoaffective disorder, one of the symptoms or conditions of that is psychosis. And as part of that psychosis or paranoia, Charlie has hallucinations and delusions. And those can be in the form of auditory hallucinations or visual. So she often hears voices, different voices, or she sees things which in her reality, in her world, seem real. Like everything that she's experiencing, the voices she hears, the things that she sees, for her, in every sense, that is real. But in my reality, or yours, or people listening, I can't see those things. I can't hear those things. So it's not my reality. But for her, that is her reality. It's just a different reality. And that's why the title of this book is A Different Reality. And as you read it and go through that journey, whether you're someone living with mental health, whether you're someone caring for someone, or if you're simply someone that wants to find out more about mental health, or you want to help someone in the community, or just understand how to have conversations around mental health, then this book is for you, and will really give you an insight and take you behind the scenes on what that is to live life, both from lived experience and from a carer's perspective.
Is this common?
Well, schizoaffective disorder as a diagnosis isn't very common, and not a lot of people do know about it. And I think, I was the same, and Charlie was as well. And I think when, she was first diagnosed, similar to what you're saying, we had heard about other conditions. And I think the more common one is schizophrenia, where, more people know about it. There is kind of more content available, but schizoaffective disorder is not a very common diagnosis. We are starting to hear a lot more about it. As I meet people now within the community, as I have conversations with other carers, I myself over the years are meeting more people now that are caring for someone that is diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. But yes, it isn't something that is commonly known of. And I think that's another reason why we felt this book was so important, because we wanted to give people the opportunity to read and understand something that we didn't have. So, I think about myself, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and even Charlie, when she was first diagnosed, wanting to understand, what does it mean? What are some of the symptoms? What is that journey that I'm going to go through? And how is it different from, depression or anxiety? And, depression, anxiety, all of that comes in and is part of, PTSD and schizoaffective disorder. You just experience it differently, as with any other mental health condition. I think each of them have a certain diagnosis and, a certain treatment for it. But I think we need to holistically treat all of it in the same way, with that same kind of love, understanding, and compassion for everyone.
So let's take a step back and start from the starting. So what happened when you know that something is not right, somewhere we need help, somewhere something is there which we don't know, but we need to help? uh, what happened in your journey? How did it begin? Have you ever come into your mind, like, what people is thinking about this thing?
Yeah, look, I think growing up in India, look, there was, if I think back to the 80s and 90s, when I was growing up, there was no concept of mental health. Like, you just got up and you got on with it. Nobody ever, you didn't hear of anyone going to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. You heard them going to doctors and surgeons, but mental health and well-being was never discussed openly. It was something that even people, if I look back now, I know people were struggling with, but there were probably no words to describe it. It was not kind of okay with society to talk about it. So even I didn't really understand a lot about it. And when I met Charlie, about 11 years ago, at that point, she had already been diagnosed with a mental health condition.
Okay.
So she had already been diagnosed at that point, and she shared with me about that diagnosis. And back then, as a friend, I felt same. I felt uncomfortable. I didn't know what to say, how to approach it. But because we were really good friends at that point, I felt comfortable just asking her a few questions and allowing her to explain things to me. And the more she explained to me, allowed me to understand. But even then, it was really early on, Harita, in the diagnosis and in our journey. And she was only diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder much later, because the other thing with schizoaffective disorder is it takes a period of time to be able to diagnose. So if you've got a treating psychiatrist that is kind of assessing you and treating you, even for them, it takes a period, because you have to go through a few episodes of being unwell and displaying psychosis and depression and things like that, for them to be able to come up with the diagnosis that it is in fact schizoaffective disorder. So it was about, a year or so into our relationship when she first had kind of the first episode of paranoia. And at that time, she felt like there was a chip planted in her foot and that she was being monitored. And for me, that was like completely foreign. Like, I hadn't heard of anything like that. And it scared me. It scared me as well. I mean, I was like, hold on, what? But then I remembered that, and I shared this in the book as well, that I remember watching an episode on the medical drama series Grey's Anatomy. And, one of the patients had experienced something similar, where, they were diagnosed with schizophrenia, and, how they were feeling really scared that there was something placed inside them and cameras were monitoring them, and the doctor had to bring in their scan and put it up for them so they could see that, in fact, there was nothing there. So I thought about that and I said, let me do the same thing. So I brought out an old x-ray and I took it to Charlie and I said, look, like, there's nothing in your leg. It's all okay. And, that was kind of just my initial response, because I didn't know anything about it. And she was terrified because that was her first experience of psychosis as well. But through that, over time, and I think this is why it's so important to reach out and ask for help, because we were really lucky, because Charlie had an excellent psychotherapist as well as a psychologist and a psychiatrist, sorry, not a psychologist, as well. And, you know, back then I didn't even know the difference between the terms. I didn't know what a kind of a psychiatrist does versus a psychotherapist or psychologist. And it was only after time and you know, going to appointments with Charlie, understanding what they do, that I now understand the difference, which is, you know, a psychiatrist is someone that prescribes medication. They're doctors and they prescribe the medication that you need for your condition. Whereas a psychotherapist or a psychologist are therapy-based practitioners. So they work on everyday kind of practices that help you with, you know, managing everyday stresses in life and well-being, and putting in strategies that can help you. So, you know, it's definitely been a journey that we've both come on, and, you know, it's been a lot of learning, a lot of education, awareness, you know, going to sessions and understanding what this is about, as well as learning from each other's experiences. And sometimes that's, you know, often been really real and raw and scary, because it's been learning as we go, as we grow.
Yeah.
And that's what we share in the book. And that's why we wanted to kind of have this book really raw and real, so people get that sense of what it was like right from the start, from totally not having any idea to now a place of kind of acceptance and hope and understanding that, you know, we can move forward and live a really healthy, well, fulfilling and happy life, you know, irrespective of the diagnosis.
What was your mental health, or what was your dilemma? How did you feel during those times?
Yeah. Look, I think being a carer is an extremely hard role for anyone to play. And I think there's a lot of carers and a lot of different roles and caring roles that people find themselves in. You know, for me, and probably for a lot of people as well, we find ourselves in the role by virtue of our nature of the relationship with the person that we're caring for. So, you know, when I got into a relationship with Charlie, I didn't necessarily see myself as a carer at that point. But through our relationship, I found myself in that role. And, you know, I've cared for Charlie from a physical point of view, because obviously, you know, people may not know, but Charlie had a motorbike accident as well, and severe, you know, physical disabilities as well, and leading to a below knee amputation. So I've been caring for her from the physical health side of it as well. But caring for someone for a mental health condition is very, very challenging. And over the years, I've gone through, you know, mixed emotions, from frustration, anger, guilt, denial, just feeling really scared. And like you said, Haritha, really helpless, because this is the person that I love the most in the world, and being in a place where I can't really help them, or I don't know how to help them, makes you feel really helpless. And it's also very lonely and isolating. But at the same time, I also have immense love, care, empathy, and just complete admiration for what Charlie lives with and experiences. And no matter how hard my experience is, I know hers is even harder. And I now have an appreciation and understanding of that. But I think, you know, to your point of what we need to do around that is, you know, I didn't even know that I was a carer for a long time. I didn't even put that title, you know, like, you know, people would say, I just thought it was my role as a partner.
Yeah.
You know, this is my wife and I'm caring for my wife.
It's a responsibility kind of thing.
Correct. I'm in that role, and that's what I do for the person I love. But I never saw myself as a carer. And it was only when I understood that, hold on, I'm actually in the role of a full-time carer for someone, that allowed me then to go out and ask for help. And I realized that there's so much help and support out there, even for carers. So it's not just for people living with a mental health condition or a physical disability. There's even help out there for carers. So for people out there that are caring for your loved ones, caring for people in the community, know that there is help for you as well. So, you know, I was able to get a carer advocate who works with me. You know, I've been to therapy sessions myself. I've had individual therapy sessions and counseling sessions. We go to couple sessions as well. I've been to support groups where I sit and talk to additional, you know, other carers. And initially I thought, well, I'm not going to a support group. Like, that's not my thing. Like, you know, it's not for me. But I was wrong in that, because going to that group, it broadened my understanding. It gave me an idea of what other people are journeying through, and we could share experiences as well, because like you said, not a lot of people know about schizoaffective disorder. Not a lot of people even know a lot about other mental health conditions. And going to a support group just gave me that space where, I could talk to someone and they understood what I was experiencing.
Yeah.
And, I felt heard, I felt seen, and it allowed me then to find ways to better care for myself, so then I could better care for Charlie.
True.
And I think that's really important for carers as well, is that, that you need to be cared for too, whilst you're caring for someone, because we can feel like it's all our responsibility and we don't need any help. But when you ask for help, it actually helps us better care for the people that we love.
And share one of the moment where you feel like, a lot of scared, or like what happened, like, any incidents or experience where you said, oh my God, I can't do beyond this. It's like, you got too much scared. You might have something which is like, feel out of control kind of thing.
Yeah. So a big part of that is I suppose, my own anxiety that comes from caring for someone. Like, so I haven't been diagnosed with anxiety or depression or any, condition as such, but the everyday aspect of caring for someone gives you a level of anxiety that you have to then live with or normalize in your life. And, if I think about an instance that really terrified me, it was a while back now, it was a few years ago, and Charlie was severely unwell at that time, and she was in hospital, and she was having suicidal thoughts and about, having to go and jump in front of a train. And I knew that she was feeling this thought. And she called me at work and she told me this, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave work and I'm gonna come and meet you. And I knew she was in hospital, so I rang the hospital and I told them, this is what she's experiencing, so they knew and they could care for her. And I got into the train to make my way to the hospital. And while I was sitting on the train stopped, and I had my headphones on, and I was like, oh, it's probably like track work or another train passing, or something. And then the train didn't start, and then the guard came on and he made an announcement to say there'd actually been a fatality and someone had actually jumped on the train line. And in that moment, my heart just sank, because that last conversation was just playing and playing in my head. And I was like, oh my God, please don't let it be Charlie. Like, help, like, this can't be. And, I tried calling her. She was not answering her phone. I tried calling the hospital. They were not answering. And at that moment, I was like, no, this can't be. And I really had to work on grounding myself in that moment and really focus on all the things I could think of to stay present in the moment and know that she was safe, that it could not be her. And of course it wasn't, she's still very much alive. And, I'm very grateful for that. But, it's been moments like, that's one moment I share with you, but there've been many moments like that.
True.
And the nature of mental health is so cyclic that you can go from having a good day to having a really bad day very quickly.
True.
And
True.
as a carer, you keep going on that roller coaster of emotions, and there's often no kind of exit or, downtime. And that can get quite tiring and overwhelming. And I started to feel burnout. And I knew then that if I wanted this relationship to work, if I wanted this to be a long-term, a long-term relationship, then I needed to reach out and ask for help, because I knew it wasn't a sprint, it was a marathon.
True. Yeah.
And in order to do that, I needed to ask for help and get the right help and support that I need, so I can care for myself, for my own anxieties, for my own mental health, while I support Charlie.
Yeah.
And so, you do have to kind of surrender to the fact that you yourself need help. Whether you have a diagnosis or not, I think we all at some point need help with our own mental health, our own anxieties, our own triggers as well, so that, we can then better support the people that we need to care for, whether it's mental health, physical health, or just caring for people in the community.
Larissa, in today's time, the lot of concept and, and the idea of the mental health has changed. It's lots more aware. People are more aware about the situation. Do you think still there is some stigma, people hesitant to ask for the help if they suffer any help or if they need anything?
Look, I think, yes, sadly, there is still a lot of stigma around mental health. I mean, we've seen it firsthand because of like the nature of our experience having the physical health condition and mental health. We see the differences, it is getting better. There are more conversations happening. And I think if you look at what's happened in the last 2 years, just with COVID and everything and the way that the world has turned around, um, you know, it's put mental health at the forefront for a lot of people. Even if people don't have a diagnosis or never had, we've all during that period felt isolated, disconnected, anxious, scared, uncertain about the future, unable to kind of cope with everyday tasks. And at some point, we've all needed to reach out and ask for help. So I think it's moving forward. People are realizing now that, look, mental health needs to be something that we need to talk about more, that we need to give more focus to and attention to. But sadly, yes, there is still stigma around it. And, that's another thing we hoped to do with this book, and having conversations with yourself as well, is to break that stigma, is to open up the conversations so people can have these conversations. Like, it's okay to not be okay. It's
True.
okay to not be okay.
Yeah. So with your experience, with this book, with everything, if you can give top 3 tips to anybody in the normal world, what would be that 3 tips to, cope or have a happy, health, physical and mental?
Yeah. Look, I think from what we've learned and grown through, I think the first thing would just be to acknowledge the fact that it's okay to not be okay. I think society and the world we live in right now puts pressure on us to always cope with everything. Like, we're fine. I can do this. Like, I'm good. It's all right. And I think the first bit is acknowledging the fact that, look, I am struggling. I'm not coping. And having those conversations, whether it's yourself having the conversation or it's someone else having the conversation with you, it's acknowledging the fact that it is okay to not be okay. And I think the second one leading on from that is to ask for help. Because when we realize that we're not feeling okay, we might be struggling, we're, finding it a little hard to cope, or we're feeling overwhelmed, we tend to go inward. So we tend to keep it all inside. Again, because of that, historic stigma around mental health, we go, I don't want to share this. I'm going to try and deal with it on my own.
Yeah.
And I think that's the worst thing we can do at that point. I think what we should be doing, what I encourage everyone to do, is to ask for help, because no one has to go through this alone. There is so much help out there. Wherever you're listening to this from around the world, there's helplines, there's doctors, there's psychologists, there's therapists, there's social workers, peer workers, people in the community that can help you. And even for carers, like I said, for someone, if you are caring for someone, a great way to ask for help is to talk to the treating team of the person that you're caring for. Just and ask them, say, I'm caring for my wife or my partner, my parent, whoever. What help can I get as their carer? And ask for that help. So know that you don't have to do it alone. And I think the last one, or number 3, would definitely be to focus on self-care. And, often, again, we're taught in life to put everyone first and then us.
True.
But we're also taught to put your oxygen mask on first. And I think in this instance, that's really important, because we have to think about self-care and looking after each of us so we can better care for people. And the way I think about self-care is about, if you look at your day, to make sure that you carve out some time in your day for yourself, to do things that put joy, happiness, positive energy back into your life and lift your mood. Because the world we live in right now is depleting of energy constantly. And we've, as individuals, got to find ways to bring that joy and happiness back into our life. And often people say, I don't have time. And to that, I would say, you can carve out time and make a list of things that you can do in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, and so on. So if you go, okay, I don't have half an hour, but I have 15 minutes, you've got a list of things that you can do in 15 minutes to put joy back into your life. It takes 3 minutes to listen to a song and have a bit of a dance and put joy back into your life. So we can all find time to do that. So yeah, know that it's okay to not be okay, ask for help, and yes, focus on self-care and putting some joy back into your life.
Cool. And with this note, it sounds more interesting, like, people may have more interest to read the book because it's raw, it's personal experience, it's going there, like, feeling what you have gone through that. How they can get the book?
Yep, so the book is available in an ebook version, which you don't need a Kindle to read. You can read on any device by just downloading an app. So there is a ebook available. It's also available in paperback and hardcover. It's available through Amazon and through all of the other online retail stores that it's available. If you just Google it, it should pop up. It's available internationally. So yeah, anywhere in the world you can get a copy.
Thank you so much, Nerissa, and I wish you all the very best with this new book.
Thank you very much for having me. I look forward to chatting to you again. Take care.
Have a happy New Year again.
You too.